and is preparing to live stream the meeting. Okay, so it apparently is live streaming the meeting right now. And I guess we could try to share it.
Oh yeah, let me go. I can definitely go to the YouTube and find you and share it. I would like to do that so we all can watch. I think that helps.
Okay, and I am leaving the one. I never know which of my accounts I'm in, so I'm leaving the other one on my other computer. And
I'm just gonna look to see where you are first. I'm gonna look at the main channel just to make sure you're not there. I don't. Well, let's double check.
I'm on my secondary.
You are definitely okay. So let me go to the second channel then. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like I wasn't going the wrong one and you were there and then. So it worked though. That's good. See, that to me is an improvement. Like you know now that you can get it to stream on the correct channel. So that's good.
Yeah, slowly but surely I'm learning all sorts of things. You think I would know?
There's a learning curve for all of us because guess who decided not to do Google Hangouts anymore? It was YouTube. So they kind of forced us into the situation. They seem to like the live streams, but yet they see. Okay, I'm going to share it.
Okay, good. All right. Oh, I should probably be doing this on, for the Twitter, I need to, yeah.
Well, I want to tag you on Facebook, so you don't need, and it does have the right title, so it should.
Yeah, okay. Let me see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go to my channel, which is the other channel, and then I'm going to go to this because I have a link to it. And now I see it. I see you, Julia. So you're in the picture, and I'm going to look at it for a minute so I can tweet it because I have a link.
Of course.
Okay, and I have to shut it up a little bit because I'm talking there.
Topic very interesting because since I don't have kids, some people tell me that I can't have an opinion about children.
Oh no, because all of us have been kids. You know, it's not just for parents; it's also about kids, right? We've all been kids.
I mean, that's what I think too. Like, and I'm thinking, I've had people tell me that before. This is one reason I didn't want to teach anymore because all I was talking to this one mom was, your son is one of the worst behaving boys in class. He's like talking about McDonald's and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, can you just ask him not to do that? Like very positive. She's like, well, you don't have kids. You might be a teacher, but you don't have kids. So you don't understand the struggle. So it was just kind of like,
yeah.
So I've told this before, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, people who don't have children, and of course, I remember being a person who didn't have children. I was a person like that for many, many years. And you get lectures about it. And even when you tell people you want to be a parent, they'll say, you're not good enough to be a parent. You know, other people are good enough, but you're not. Or all sorts of weird things that people will tell you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I still think that it would be nice to have a child, but this is my thing, just living in California and the cost of living right now. And just, it's not that I don't want to, it's just like for me, unless I end up start making a lot of money, I don't know how viable that is to have a child. But I love children. I think children are great and everything.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to be rich to have a child. I'm not one of those people who believe that you have to
No, you don't have to be rich, but right now in California, it's just like the cost of living keeps going up all the time. And you can move other places, but if you're anyway, that's deviating, but that's just one.
Yeah, no, the other side of the story is that if you are a parent and you talk to some kind of professional and you have a very strong opinion about your child, not necessarily all children in the world, but just something about your child.
Yeah, your child.
What your child needs, then somebody else who might be a psychologist, a counselor, whatever, will say, but I've worked with hundreds of children, so I know better than you do. And they may know better than you do about hundreds of children, but they don't know about your child either. So
I have some insights into that because I know some of the things that psychologists or psychiatrists will recommend for like a child, and it's not always the best, by the way. sometimes it's detrimental things. Like, for instance, there was this boy, when I was a teacher, they were putting him on certain like psychotropic drugs, and me and the one teacher were concerned because if he wanted to go into the military right away, the one teacher was saying he might not even be considered because of some of the mental medications that they were putting him on, that might preclude him from certain careers, because they said he needed this when he had a little bit of ADHD, and they were just giving him like these psychotropic drugs that were making him kind of tired and lethargic, and he wasn't really a problem. He just had a little bit of ADHD, but they were prescribing things to him that we had problems with, and they were like, this is fine, and we didn't think it was fine, but like the parent was like, oh really? Like she started getting concerned, but the counselor and the psychiatrist were like, yeah, it's okay, like it doesn't matter, like the long they were just making the mom feel like, well, she should do that. But then she started questioning it, and she took her son off those things. But if she had not listened or got some other information, he might have remained on that medication,
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a lot of really odd things going on. And here's what I believe. And yes, I'm a libertarian, so this has to do with that. I believe that each parent should make decisions for their own child. Um, and that we're not really qualified, any of us, to make decisions for somebody else's child. And that's a different view of qualification, really, because some people think qualification is your education, your experience, and all of that. But your qualification, your greatest qualification as a parent, is that you care about your child and you know your child, and that makes you qualified. And also, your child's future is your future, really. That's why.
Of course. I just worry about the parents, okay, that they might, like, they go into like a meeting or something like that, and then some professionals telling them, well, your child needs to be on this, it needs to take that. And that concerns me, because if somebody doesn't give them other information, they might just go along with that thinking, oh my gosh, my child needs to take that medication. My child needs to do this and that because some professional is telling me that, and there could be long-term repercussions for that. And I find that concerning to me.
Yeah, it is. It's very concerning for all of us. And, my take on it is that each of us are definitely qualified to decide about our own child and not so qualified to decide about other people's children. So if you see a parent in the grocery store struggling with a child and the child is throwing a tantrum, probably the best thing to do, and I think that's what the founding fathers would have done, is mind your own business. Don't
Yes.
tell the parent what to do. They might be having a really big struggle with a child for all sorts of reasons that you don't know, that I don't know,
Minding your own business in a lot of cases. Okay, this is a case that's not a child, but in a lot of cases, I think it's preferable. Like, well, there was a lady that came up to me at the grocery store. She goes, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, why? She goes, that lady over there, she's using all the hairbrushes and she's brushing her hair. And I'm like, well, it's kind of gross, but I'm not getting involved. I'm going to go the other way, because I think sometimes it's.
Oh, you froze. Can you still hear me? Julia, can you hear me? Are you still there? Are you still there? Well, I seem to have lost Julia. I have no idea whether I'm lost or she's lost. Um, so on my end, it looks as if we are still live and we're still on YouTube. But for some reason, Julia disappeared. She was about to tell us a story about something about why minding your own business is a good idea. And she disappeared. Now I'm going to check and see whether I'm just talking to myself or I'm still talking to people on YouTube. Hmm. Well, it looks as if I'm still on YouTube, although it's kind of hard to get reception. Okay, Julia says she got bumped off. So I'm asking her if she can come back. Okay. All right. She said that I should just keep talking. Well, I'll tell you something about minding your own business. When I was in Israel, a friend was driving me around, and there were some people who were driving very badly, weaving in and out of their lanes and doing all sorts of, well, not legal things, not things that help with maintaining traffic control. And on the back of the this car that went whizzing by and cut her off and did something not quite good, it had a number and says, if I do something wrong, please report me. So I said, well, there's a number. Do you want to report that person? And she said, no. I raised my own children. I taught them right from wrong. I don't feel that it's my job to be a parent to everybody else in the world. And I just know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I thought that was a pretty positive attitude, because I know some people who can't help but report everybody for everything. So that was it was kind of refreshing for me that she said that. So yeah, we parent our own children. We can't parent everybody. We can't intervene everywhere, although sometimes we can help someone. Okay, so I'm still talking. Well, I can tell you while I'm waiting for Julia to come back that I started watching a different show on Netflix. It's called something like 1000 Good Nights Story, something like that. And it's from Taiwan. Before that, I was watching Meteor Garden, and it was from mainland China, and it was set in Shanghai. And this show is the 1000 Good Night Story, is from Taiwan. I'm not sure exactly what place in Taiwan it's set in. It's got some beautiful scenery. You can sort of tell that they're Taiwanese and not mainland China people. They've kind of got a Taiwanese accent, which basically means that this family that they're describing isn't, an upper top class family. It's just an ordinary family. And they have an excellent father. He is a train station master, and he helps people. And in the beginning, we saw him help a little boy escape. He was walking on the tracks, and he saved him. And the story is about his two daughters. One of them is his biological daughter, and the other is adopted. And the way she got adopted was that one day at the train station, her mother just left her there and said, I'm going to run some errands. And so the little girl was sitting there drawing pictures, waiting for her mother to come back. But the lady also left a note for the train master and said, I want you to take, I know you're a good person. I want you to take my daughter and raise her because I want her to be raised by a good person. And well, she didn't say why she couldn't do it. But anyway, so at the end of the day, the man waited for the little girl's mother to come back and she didn't. And so he showed her the note and he said, look, your mother said that I should watch you until she returns. And the little girl asked, when is she coming back? And so he made up a story, out of kindness and not to hurt her. He said, 1,000, she will come back in 1,000 nights. And the little girl didn't know how much 1,000 nights was, so it sounded okay to her. And then he took her to this tree, this old grandfather tree, and he told her that every night they would pray to the tree and they would tell the tree good night. And then after 1,000 nights were up, her mother would return. And so then about 3 years later, was the 1,000th night, and the little girl said goodnight to the grandfather tree, and then she waited for her mother to come back, and then she realized her mother was not coming back, and she cried. But it was okay because she already had family. Anyway, that was something about parenting and about being a parent and how a parent could be an adoptive parent and how adoption is a good thing, especially when it's chosen, when the person who is the parent, the new parent, is chosen by the old parent out of the desire to help the child. I don't know where Julia is. I don't know if Julia's watching this. So I'm asking Julia if she thinks she'll be able to come back, because if she can't, I'll just cut it off rather than waiting for 1,000 nights for Julia to get back. Actually, we're going to have a live stream on my main channel with Julia and Kelly Clear tonight. Okay, she's still trying to get back on, so we'll give her some time. So Kelly Clear is the narrator of many of my recorded books on Audible. And I think Julia's coming back. Hi, Julia.
Hi, I'm so sorry about all that. I'm sorry that I fell off the internet.
Oh, that's okay. It might have been on my side. I
No,
don't know.
I'm having like a connectivity issue a little bit. I don't know why, but anyway. I
Okay.
hope you were able to share some information on the topic while I was away.
Yeah, well, I ended up telling about this new show that I've been watching on Netflix. It's about a station master who adopted a little girl who was dropped off. I don't know. Were you able to see that, what I was talking about?
I wasn't, because like my internet just conked out, and I finally got back to Zoom, and it took me almost like 5 minutes to reconnect to Zoom, because Zoom goes around, and anyway, but I'm back. But I didn't get to see that.
Yeah, that's okay. You were going to tell me a story about minding our own business. So go ahead with your story, because I didn't hear it. I know you probably were still talking.
Oh, yeah.
You're cut off, but
yeah. My whole thought recently is, maybe unless somebody's like being injured, now then I could see intervening if somebody's being injured or somebody has a medical emergency, yes. But if you're like in a grocery store and somebody's doing something that we might not agree with, like trying on deodorant or brushing their hair, which, okay, I don't agree with those behaviors, right? But here's the thing. These are open packages. I feel like that's kind of on the store's part. If they're going to have things on display that are open that people can touch, then that's kind of up to the store to decide, do they want to put it behind like a glass or something? If people are going to start using, I personally don't want to intervene if I see people eating produce at the store. I've seen people do that, and then they come up to the checker, and one lady didn't even mention it. And the checker's like, well, were you eating that? She goes, oh yeah, I'll pay for it. But she might have been hoping nobody would notice. And then the lady brushing her hair, the other lady's like, well, that's disgusting. I'm saying, I think it's kind of gross, but I'm going to go the other way because I don't want to say anything. She goes, I was going to say something to her, but I don't agree with it. I think it's kind of gross to go into a store and start using hairbrushes. I mean, it kind of makes me think,
yeah. If I thought something needed to be done, I would tell one of the employees. I would not tell just some person standing there that I wanted. I mean,
you could tell the employee, that's fine. She could do that, but she was kind of coming to me, and I'm like, well, this isn't really my problem. I don't want to create another problem for myself by confronting someone.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and another thing is she wasn't really hurting anyone, and I don't agree with doing that personally, but here's the thing. The packages are open, so it is kind of on the store to decide, do they want to display things that people can touch and use? Like if deodorant's out, yeah, I've seen people try on deodorant at the store. I want to do that, okay? But that's kind of up to a store. Do they want to put it where you have to ask for it so people don't try it on? Or like makeup, like, yes, I've seen people try on makeup that's not a tester, but if it's open and they can access it and the store isn't really doing anything about it, that is not my job to go up to. If somebody wants to tell a store employee that really bothers them and it's not hygienic that they're doing these things, that's one thing. But I, as a customer, am not going to go confront another customer that was brushing her hair with hairbrushes. I just don't think she was hurting anyone. It might have been gross. I might not have agreed with what that lady was doing, but I'm not getting involved, because it's not minding my own business is essentially my take on it.
Yeah. And okay, so getting back to children, I think a parent needs to protect a child, right?
Yeah.
That's the parent's job to do.
Yes, of course.
But it's not the state's job to tell the parent how to do that. And
it's not.
Yeah, so I think just people are very, very confused on this.
Well, here's another example, okay? It's like people telling other people what their children should eat, okay? This kind of goes on YouTube a little bit where there will be this mom and she'll be making like a lunch for the kids. And then another YouTuber will make a video saying that's not nutritionally complete, blah, blah, blah. And one lady said in the comments, well, oh my God, do you know what some kids used to eat like back in the day, like my own child, like they ate goldfish crackers, like, and peanut butter because that's what they wanted to eat. And I would just be scared now to have kids because would somebody like criticize me or would I get in trouble if somebody found out? And then somebody said in the comments, well, it's okay because you're not like making videos about what your kids are eating. But this is another issue right now. Like if you make a video just about what you put in your kid's lunch, there might be somebody that makes a response video or makes comments about how it's not good for your child. But then again, maybe they don't know your child. Does your child have like the canned food issue with eating? There might be a reason your child's eating that way, and the public might not know that.
Right. And for instance, what you just mentioned about peanut butter, unless your child is allergic to peanut butter, which is a completely different issue,
Yeah.
you have to know about that. But otherwise, peanut butter is perfectly nutritious. There's nothing actually wrong with it.
I love peanut butter and I always ate lots of peanut butter, and it was a revelation to me that schools were banning peanut butter, which to me that kind of bothered me at the time. I actually wrote a blog post about that like in 2010. I'm like, well, why are you banning peanut butter because a few kids are allergic? Like I don't understand like how many people have that severe of an allergy that just a peanut butter sandwich being at school is going to cause them to go into analytic shock. Are there really that many people in the general public that one kid bringing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to school, which is one of the more affordable lunches, by the way, we always talk about wanting to make food accessible, right? So then they give them an alternative. And this bothers me too, because if the mom's on a budget, they tell them, well, she could buy sesame seed flour butter for her child. But have you seen how expensive sesame seed flour butter is compared to peanut butter? It's, if you're on a budget, like that mom might not be able to afford that little jar of the really expensive thing. But if you go to Costco, you can get 2 big jars of organic peanut butter for like $5. And that would be much more affordable for the parent. And that kind of bothers me a little bit.
Yeah, no, it bothers me a lot because there are all sorts of decisions that as a parent you're not allowed to make. And nowadays, you're sent to the pediatrician, you're basically told to be a good parent. And during the first 10 years of life, you should have a pediatrician visit every year and all that. Mm-hmm. And then, there's a growth chart, and the growth chart shows who's in the 99 percentile and who's in the bottom percentile in growth and all of this kind of stuff. And, a lot of that is genetic. It's of not, course. Yeah. We can't expect your child to grow the same as some other person.
I was behind in the growth chart, a little bit shorter, like than some kids, like, because I'm part, oh my God, like, and even now, like, there's so many people that are taller than me, like some Hispanic people.
Well, my daughter, and there's a big difference between when they're born. If they're born, the ones who are really underweight are the ones who are premature or were sick in the uterus. But the ones who are born healthy, they tend to be toward the 99 percentile. So my daughter was 99 percentile at birth. She was a healthy baby. She continued to be healthy, but we are small. I'm small.
Yes.
So obviously she didn't keep that up. And so once the baby arrives at a certain age, it starts to follow its genetic things. And it's less about whether it's getting good nutrition and more about what it's programmed to do, genetically.
Yes, definitely. Like some people are taller, some people are shorter, but yeah, they make
it seem like you're in a competition with all the other parents about how well fed your child is. And if your child is seeming to fall, started out at 99 percentile and is now falling down, it's like your child is behind and it's your fault.
That's ridiculous. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I'm not saying that it's good to like let your kid eat whatever they want, but I've heard cases which really bothered me where they said, like in the UK, they have different laws. I know they were going to take this child away from his mother because they thought he was too obese and she wasn't doing enough to get a nutritionist to help him lose weight. And if she didn't do all these steps, the state was going to come in and take the child away. I was thinking, how is that going to help the child? Wouldn't that cause more trauma to uproot him from a loving home just because he can't lose weight? And yes, they had some issue, but why did the state have to be that involved?
It shouldn't. It should not at all. It shouldn't. And this, people can actually be afraid if their children happen to be skinny. You could be feeding your child a very healthy diet, and your child is not prone to obesity because that's how you are genetically.
My nephew is the same as, he cannot gain weight even as a 20-year-old. He's very skinny.
Yeah. So, but if you're a parent and all the other kids are overweight in the class and your child stands out, then the other people might be whispering that you're not feeding your child. Stuff like that can happen.
That's ridiculous. Like, I can't, that's so weird that people are thinking, oh, nobody can be naturally skinny, because some people are,
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Like, but I think that happened to my sister too, because her kids are both skinnier. Well, my nephew especially. And I think the fifth grade teacher said, well, why are they so skinny? Like, that's because genetically their dad is really skinny too, and he's very skinny still.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My point is that if you make raising a child so communal that your entire community gets to vote on what you do, that's not good.
Can I tell you, I've always hated that it takes a whole village to raise a child, because we thought that was really obnoxious. Like, when was the first time we heard that? Okay.
I think Hillary Clinton is the one who made it popular.
Yeah, but this is why we thought it was obnoxious. We hadn't heard about it until, our school had like this paper, and this girl or her mom wrote something about, oh, it took a whole village to raise my child. And we just found that, okay, being real, we found that very obnoxious because like she was like expressing all this gratitude to everybody. She's like, it took a whole village to raise my child. And it just sounded very fake and corny to me in a way, because does it really take a look, if you want to live a communal lifestyle, whatever, what to do, but it doesn't take a whole village to raise a child. That's just the truth. I'm sorry. It takes a family, not a whole
Yeah, exactly. And if it, to the extent that it does take a village, it takes the village minding its own business.
Yeah, that makes,
raise the child.
so maybe we can rephrase that to be, it takes a whole village minding its own business to allow a family to raise their own child.
Right,
Would that
exactly.
be better? Because I think that would be better. That would probably be controversial, but I always just hated that meme. I guess you could call it a meme quote, because it just feels so fake, and it seems like that was the beginning, like maybe in that time period when they started encouraging more intrusive, like parenting. Do you think it started around that time with the Clintons?
No, it's been going on ever since the child labor laws. I think, and I think it's around the time of the suffragettes, around the time, or even before that.
Mhm.
Is it, when exactly did
Like
mandatory education come
or
into
like
being?
the progressive movement. Like I guess a lot of that stuff probably did start in New England, because I know they have a whole history of this because of the Salem witch trials. They went from one extreme to another extreme, where in New England you had these puritanical religions that were very zealous, and these girls didn't want to do exactly what they want to do, and then they turned around and were accusing people of being witches. So a lot of New England, they have always been very conscientious about, oh my gosh, we don't want to accuse people of witchcraft, and we want to like become more secular and more humanist. But then they went the other way. It seems like during the transcendentalist movement, I like the whole idea of like the more libertarian parts of the transcendentalist movement. But then when they started getting into being more intrusive in people's lives, I didn't like that as much, if that makes any sense. Do you
Yeah,
know? Yeah.
yeah. So what started to happen was that people were told, look, there are children whose families aren't taking care of them. They're not getting an education because they're forced to work in the field or help their parents or get apprenticed to a trade or whatever. And they're not getting the same opportunity as middle class children.
Yeah, exactly.
So what they thought was, okay, who's at fault here? And who is standing in the way of the happiness of these children? The parents. So let's do something about the parents. And what they did was they made going to school mandatory. So even though the parents might need the help of the children in the, to harvest or plant or do something, uh, the parents would go to jail if they didn't send the children to school.
And another thing about that is a lot of people, they end up, if an older child isn't helping the family in some way working, they could end up starving. So the same policies that were thought to protect the family could actually end up harming them in the long run. Like if you don't have any income coming in, how are you going to feed your family if nobody's
Right. And they were not actually trying to protect the family, because there's a difference between the family and the child. They were creating a kind of conflict between the well-being of the child and the well-being of the rest of the family. It's like, this child should have this opportunity, as if the child weren't somehow connected with its family, and as if they, we're not still dependent on the family and the parent, and so the parent's right to make a decision about the child was taken away. And a lot of times, the way this was explained to other parents was this: look, we know you're a good parent. There's no question about that. We know that you would never hurt your child. We know that you would make the best decision for your child. But there are other parents. They're bad. They're bad parents. So for the sake of the children of the bad parents, you should give up some of your parental rights. And that's how they got these laws passed.
to me, like the more I hear about this, like we're always told, oh, well, child labor laws are such a good thing. But the part I don't like is that they make these blanket judgments about everybody. They tell anybody, like a 16-year-old who probably doesn't want to be in school anyway, is struggling with academics, shouldn't have some sort of vocation because it would be better for them to just be in school. But guess what? A lot of them end up dropping out of school anyway because they need to have a job to support their family. And this is just reality. Actually, they were saying like here in San Bernardino County, at one time, 25% of the students weren't finishing high school, by the way. So they can put in all these mandatory laws that they want about compulsory education, but a lot of people were not making it to the high school degree. And so what they started doing was, I think they were fining parents. They started fining them, trying to make the kids be in school. It just, a lot of ridiculous new ways to try and enforce compulsory education.
Right. And of course, it doesn't work because if you're not interested in the education, you're not going to get anything out of it. And
Yeah.
that's why right now the things they're teaching in college are things that people used to know before high school.
Yeah.
Because you can't really teach it until you have only those people who actually want to be there to study it.
Yeah.
So it ends up hurting everybody.
Yeah, I don't like, just the more I hear about it, it just seems like the libertarian approach to allow a family to make these decisions in the long run would be much better than having the state say, well, this is the best way to raise your child. And it changes, like the state is just people, right? And the village and the community and whatever they think at the moment. And they can have conflicts too, by the way. It's not like it's this cohesive group of people that all think the same things. They have a lot of contradictory ideas arguing in education departments, by the way. But isn't that kind of a waste of taxpayer dollars? Like some of the curriculums and some of the enforcement of like everybody up until 18 has to be in school no matter what. No matter what.
Yeah, no, and these just the very fact that the decision is centralized. I'm not saying that I know the right answer for every question about what should you do with a child. And I think
Yeah. I don't think you're saying that at all. I think that the state education programs might be, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it's not centralized, if each parent gets to choose, some parents will maybe make an unfortunate decision and others will make a good decision. And eventually we'll see which decisions were better. And we can learn generation after generation and we can all make better decisions. But if this is all coming from on high centrally, then whatever decision they make, if it's a mistake, then we're all going to make that same mistake. And so there's no way to be able to tell or to compare results.
Yeah. And a lot of these kids that end up dropping out of high school, by the way, they end up being entrepreneurs later or having very successful careers or being very famous actresses. So finishing high school doesn't always guarantee that you're going to make a lot of money or be successful in life. Sometimes the people who dropped out are very successful later in life because they've just decided to do what they wanted to do, pursue their passion. So we can't, I don't know. That's why I'm saying like compulsory education isn't, especially after the age of like, it used to be 16 in California. When they raised it to 18, I think that started causing a lot of problems because I don't know why they decided to do that. They started having more kids they were now just breaking the law, where before at 16, you were considered almost an adult. If you weren't wanting to go to school, that's your prerogative. But now, like if you're 16 and you're not going to school, the parents can get in trouble. And it just, I don't know. I just didn't agree with that change, in my opinion.
Well, 16 used to be an age at which many children were emancipated. As some even got married at that age and started their own families. I'm not saying that I recommend doing that, but if you don't leave that as an option for some people, they're going to get in more trouble than if you did allow them to do that.
Yeah, and I think some of the kids just drop out anyway, and it just causes more legal issues because it's not like all of a sudden magically you pass this law and everybody's going to be like, oh, all these kids are going to want to stay in school, or all these parents are going to feel like that's the best decision. That's just my take on it.
Right. I mean, wasn't there, oh, do you need to answer
no,
that?
It's just a telemarketer. I'm sorry. I'll silence it. Go
Okay, yeah, I think there was a Laura Ingalls Wilder in one of the books um, where they were talking about another girl and she turned 16 and got married. And
Mhm.
Laura knew that she didn't want to do that. You know, that was not for her.
Yeah,
Uh,
I remember that one in the Shores of Silver Lake about the young girl that got married, and they Laura was like, I don't want to do that. I do remember that.
right. And it's not like Laura waited until she was very old to get married. By our standards, Laura was very young when she married too, but she did get an education because she wanted an education.
Yeah.
So she made sure that she got one.
And I sort of think with Laura, she was very independent anyway. I think if she had never met Almanzo, this is just my speculation, if she hadn't met him, if they had not crossed paths, she might have just went on to continue teaching for a long time before she got married. Like, that's the opinion I got. Like, she wasn't even, when she first met Almanzo, she wasn't like one of these young girls. Like, there's a lot of young girls, nothing changes, they are boy crazy. She wasn't like that. She just was very independent, doing her own thing. And Almanzo kind of wooed her over because he kept coming out to give her a ride home to her parents' house from that horrible situation where she was boarding. So that kind of won her over time. She was very independent, though, you know, like people assume,
Yeah.
oh, somebody gets married young, like they're just not necessarily, you know. And Laura was independent. Her daughter was very independent. I was, you know,
Oh,
they were
yes, very, very, very. Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So when I say that it should be okay for some girls to marry 16, I don't mean that every girl is going to. And that's the thing. What I'm saying is what is right for one person is not right for another person.
Yeah, and a lot of the young people that end up having kids in their teens, they're having kids with other teens, by the way, but now they are changing law, like where you can't, I think in some states they're changing law where you have to be 18 to get married. So if two 16-year-olds have a baby, that it sounds like
They
they're
can't
going to
get
change it
married.
to,
Yeah. And why is that? So that the state can have rights over the baby.
yeah, and
Uh,
that bothers me a little bit. Yeah.
because at that point, those two 16-year-olds are parents, and we as a society should make it possible for them to earn a living, to make decisions about their children, and so on and so forth. So uh, the direction in which it's all going is that nobody can make any seriously different decisions about their own child from the decisions that are being made by other parents. Because it's almost like the child belongs to the state and not to the parents.
They changed when school started here in California because kids used to have summer jobs up until Labor Day weekend, by the way. And they changed that back like in the early 2000s to where they had to start in, this is ridiculous, the first week of August. And it's the hottest
Wow.
week when it's 105 degrees. And that was a big contention because a lot of businesses were, well, these teenagers would have jobs like at the local water park or the ice cream parlor or something, but now they can't really have those summer jobs. They kind of cut the summer in half, like they started earlier. Like I know some places in the world have always done that. In the Midwest, I guess they got out in May, but here in California we never got out to like June, mid-June. Went to school after Labor Day weekend, but they've changed it to where they backed it up to the first week of August. And even the teachers like, this doesn't make any sense because get this, like around December they have almost a month off.
Yeah.
I don't know why they changed it that way. Like it seemed like just so the kids couldn't have a summer job as easily or something. That's kind of what I felt like, or some other kids felt like at the
Yeah.
time.
I have no idea. Doesn't make any sense, but
Well, I know the chamber, this was back in the 90s. The Chamber of Commerce up where I live, they were kind of upset about it when they were proposing this earlier school year because they were like, well, that means a lot of businesses won't be able to employ teenagers because then they'll have to look for other people. And then that means like the used to be encouraged to have a job as a teen, right? But now a lot of kids are discouraged from having a job in high school where they could make an income, you know?
my daughter did actually work her senior year in high school. She worked at Hardee's, and she did. I was amazed that she was able to do both.
That's good. See, and I think that when kids used to be able to be encouraged to do that, they could buy their own car. Like, well, that's kind of changed now. I don't see that as much here now, where they could actually buy a car. It might not be the best car, but they didn't have to rely on their parents to buy that for them because they had ownership of that and they could have a job. But now they're being told, well, you should just focus on school and you shouldn't want to have even a part-time job outside of school, which I don't think that change was always for the better. I think it's delaying adulthood here a bit to where people are about 25 now and they're almost reaching the same life-changing events that maybe a 17 or 18-year-old did 20 years ago. That's kind of the difference I've seen.
Yeah, it's really, that's what's happening. And it was always the case that some people mature later, but now it's like they're forcing everybody to mature later.
Yeah, they are, like, just legally, like, and I hate smoking, by the way. I think it's stupid. Don't like it. But they also changed, like, okay, I'm not saying that smoking is good, but they said if they raised the age to 21, that all the young people wouldn't want to smoke. It would discourage teenagers from smoking. And they were like, this way 18-year-olds won't be smoking anymore. But now they're just going to have their friends buy them cigarettes.
Well, of course.
I mean, I don't know. Like, all these laws, they keep changing. It just seems like this is what I'm seeing in California. They're delaying adulthood a bit more. Like, they're pushing it back to, like, maybe where at 25, people are doing some of the same things, getting the first job that they may have at 18 or 17.
Right. And this is actually causing poverty. It's causing poverty along with the student loans that so many people are taking in order to get a college education because their high school education is of no value on the market. So then they go into life with this heavy debt and they're not free. That's really what it is. They are slaves.
Mm-hmm. And then we got a lot of criticism for, like, celebrities that I guess they kind of fudge so their kids would get into school. But I don't know, maybe I'm not saying what they did was right, but did they feel pressure to do that because everybody says, oh, everybody has to go to college? I don't know.
Well, the thing is, people have always bought them. People who have more money have always bought an education for their children that maybe some of those children didn't deserve, but so what?
Yeah, big deal. Like, who cares? Like, do we really care? Like, I just got tired of that whole thing because they're still kind of talking about it. I'm like, I don't think that's the biggest issue right now.
Okay, because when people used to have to pay for high school, not everybody went to high school. And I'm thinking about my parents' experience and in Israel when it wasn't free. Parents always wanted their kids to do well. So they would push their kids into a school where maybe it was a little bit above the abilities of the child. And if the child didn't do well, there would be a parent-teacher conference in which this was explained to the parents and they would be told what a better school for their child would be. And they could still send their child to school, but they would understand, okay, this particular child can't go to this particular school. But we always, that some people are going to make large donations to the school. And in that event, certain exceptions will be made. And as long as it's a private school, it's up to the school if they're going to make that kind of exception or not.
Yeah, it definitely is. I guess USC is a private school, though. That's the part where I got kind of confused. I guess because they get some state funding, it became a problem, but they're a private
school. Yeah, they all get state funding. So they basically nationalized all the schools.
That's interesting. I guess the rationale was, oh, well, if you go to a private school, you get a little bit less federal student loan money, but it's still nationalized if you get some, right? I mean,
yeah. The more the government is involved in everything, the less free everything is. That's just how it is.
Yeah. So, and also I think the forcing of the accreditation, because I've heard some schools have lost their accreditation, but did that necessarily mean that school wasn't good or they just didn't meet the rigor of some bureaucrat that determined, oh, they don't have this and this in their program. Because I've heard some really good schools lost a certain program that used to have accreditation, and it no longer has accreditation because some educational experts said, well, this program wasn't rigorous enough, or they didn't teach this.
Well, I mean, if accreditation were just something like a prize you win, and so you can say, oh, I went to a prize winning school, that's fine. But if it gets to the point where nobody will go there if it's not accredited because of federal funding, then it's a problem.
And it's also like state law too. Like there was some private Christian schools here in California where their accreditation was taken away because they weren't teaching certain California content standards, where they were looking to hire somebody with a certain credentials so they could get their accreditation back. But they were a private school, but they were being forced into the situation where they had to teach more California content standard curriculum. So even though they were a private school, the state was somehow it just seems like it's interesting. Like if it's a private school, why do we care so much?
It's a First Amendment violation if there is certain content that has to be taught, because you shouldn't be forced to study anything that you or your parents don't want studied.
Yeah, and nobody makes people go to those schools. The people that want to go to those schools are people that are very believing in a certain type of faith or maybe group. So I don't see why they need to have the state come in and say, well, they need to teach this and this and this.
Yeah. Well, I think we've run out of time, and I'm so sorry that you were pushed out. I ended up talking about a show on Netflix, but I think we got our points across.
I think so. And I hope I contributed enough, but like I said, I don't have kids, so a lot of people feel that I shouldn't speak on this topic. So.
Oh, no. That's not it at all. First of all, every person is either a child himself, also might be a potential parent, might be thinking about parenting, might be an aunt or an uncle. So everybody's got something to say about it.
Yeah, I just try to share things the way I see it. But at the end of the day, I don't want to get involved in how other people raise their kids. Like the older I get, I feel that way more now, actually, than when I was younger, because I was told, well, you should be like worried about how people raise their kids. But what I've learned over time is I just don't want to get involved in other people's lives. I don't want to tell a parent they need to restrain their child more. I have less of a desire to do that. I'm sorry. I just don't want to, and I don't think that's conducive to families either.
No, it's not. So, if we could get the state, if we get the federal government out of parenting, then maybe parents could do their jobs. But hopefully tonight's discussion on my main channel with Kelly Clear and yourself will be kind of more lighthearted, and we'll talk about Sword Chooses, which just came out on Audible.
But I'm glad, I know we're closing in a minute, but I just want to say I'm glad you do have these more serious discussions on the second channel, because I think people are looking to hear on these topics. So it's very important you bring up these issues.
Well, thank you, Julia. And I'm so glad that you're always willing to talk to me about them.
Okay, well, have a nice afternoon, Aya.
Okay, you too, Julia. Bye-bye.
Bye.